Congratulations, you're another lucky no prize winner. You'll find it enclosed.
Hello again, and welcome to Season 3 of No Prize Podcast. I'm your professor, Bud Young, and with me, as always, from across the pond is Johnny the Machine Hughes. How are you, Johnny?
Happy New Year!
Hey, Happy New Year to you too. Ready to ring in 2019, and we're ringing 2019 in with our friend Lucas, who's back from Mexico. How are you, Lucas?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Happy New Year's. Glad to be back. I'm sorry I couldn't make it the last time, but apparently the connection from Mexico was really crappy. But I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
I'm
Not surprised. I'm not surprised. Yeah, they couldn't get over the wall.
Well, it was I was high up in the mountains as well.
So there you go.
I would say that you'd be closer to the satellites then.
Yeah.
Well, there was a whole bunch of radio towers, all that shit, all around me. So I don't know if that may have had something to do with it. But.
So welcome to our all contagious episode of January for No Prize Podcast. Johnny and I are both rocking some colds, so we're going to power through our reviews, hopefully as quick as we can this week, and hopefully you'll have an idea of what you should be going out to get this week. So we're gonna just jump right in. The first week of January comes with some number ones, so we're gonna debut our episode with Man Without Fear number 1. It's our reboot of Daredevil since Charles Soule has decided to leave the building. So we're now, this issue is gonna pick up right where the last one left off, but it's more of a reset than you think. This whole issue has been kind of like almost like a retelling of his origin, but told from the perspective of where Matt is, like in hell, I guess you would say, in his own mind, where he's got the Daredevil and all of his many incarnations and many costumes, and there's one costume that's like all just skin.
Yeah, there's some
or no
carcass,
skin.
to be fair.
Yeah. So really is kind of like an on-board, everybody up. Anybody that wants to jump onto the book. This, I don't want to say that it's a flame on. I didn't really enjoy this issue. This is I got to do creators while I'm at it. Jed MacKay, written by Jed MacKay. Do we know anything he's ever done? Because that's the first time I'm looking at his name.
I didn't search him, to be fair, but first appearance of Jed MacKay was when, Lucas?
I'm sorry to say, you said the first appearance of Jed MacKay?
Yeah. This is his first Marvel, I think.
Let me have a look for you as you talk.
I want to give him the proper credit, but
no, he's
yeah, I mean, apparently he was a Canadian children's TV producer. Is that correct?
I don't know, but he's worked on, book-wise, Daughters of the Dragon, Infinity Wars, Ghost Panther number 2, Ghost Panther number 1, Vault of Spiders, and Superior Octopus number 1, as well as an issue of Edge of Spider-Geddon. There you go.
Okay, so relatively recent then, because those are all recent books. So welcome, Jed MacKay, to Marvel Comics. Artist is Danilo S. Beyruth.
I knew that one, just saying.
Also a name I'm not familiar with. So art-wise, I don't know. It's it kind of took me like a little old school. I kind of think it kind of reminds me of some like 70s Daredevils a little bit,
Right.
With the way the layouts are and kind of the visuals. Couple of things one thing that kind of jarred me out of the issue is Daredevil's supposed to be blind, and I don't know if it's because he's in his own head here, but it seems to me that he acts like he can see, right?
That's
I don't.
that's the crux of Daredevil all the way around, though. His super radar doesn't make it any blind bit of difference to him. See what I did there?
Yeah, it just, like there's a couple of panels where you see him like he's running away from something, but he's looking over his shoulder. I'm like, okay. And there's another one where he says, oh, he has no skin. I'm like, okay, how do you really know? But other than that, it kind of jarred me a little bit. Other than that, it's a first jump on point for new readers for Daredevil. I don't know if this is going to encourage you to pick up the second issue. I don't know how you guys feel about it. It was nice seeing all the old costumes, but it also kind of reminds me of how many times they've tried to change his look.
Yeah. There is a pipeline.
Yeah.
Just kind of stick with the classic, So Johnny, I don't know what you felt about it.
I thought this was a nice little bridge issue, to be fair, because you kind of had the chaos of the last storyline come to an end. It is dealing with the fact that Matt's still in hospital. The idea of him going inside himself to get his different versions of himself, as well as different versions of Matt, it's all there. It's great seeing Foggy in the book, although there's no sort of mention to the support group he's been using in Amazing Spider-Man, which you would have thought such a big deal. It would have kind of raised its head a little bit. The writing's a little bit pretentious in places, with the whole "the pain feeds me." And I also don't like how the phrase "bills come due" is used within 3 panels, twice. It's kind of like, unless it's some sort of repeated metaphor that it's supposed to guide you along, but then it's only used twice. So if it was supposed to be like a repeated theme throughout the book, it kind of loses its way a little bit. You're absolutely right about the art. It reminds me of a pared down version of Lee Weeks, who used to be on Daredevil years ago. But that's kind of okay, because Lee Weeks is Lee Weeks, right? So
Yes.
good. The lettering is by Clayton Cowles. I've done some research on this, where it says VCs. VC is actually an Incan company called Virtual Calligraphy by Chris Iliopoulos, his letter student. So
I'm familiar with him.
So there you go. So that's kind of why everyone says VCs. For me, this book's a Mr. Fantastic, which is a damn sight. See what I did there again? Better than the previous scores that I've given this book previously. Mainly because you're right, it's a jumping on point. You can forgive what's gone before. The art and improvement. We'll see what happens from there in. There you go.
Do you think that that you were kind of happy to see Charles Soule take a hike off the book and let someone else give it a shot?
The book reads like a Netflix episode.
Thank you. Yes.
And I think people who like the show will get a lot out of this book. Whereas people who like stand-up, straight-up superhero stuff probably maybe not so. I don't know. But it reads like the Netflix show, so if that's your bag, buy the book.
Maybe it's supposed to.
Maybe. And if that's the vibe they're going for, then that's okay. I don't mind that at all. I think Daredevil needs to make hay while the comic book needs to make hay while the show's still popular enough. Because once it comes off the schedule, it's not getting released. It'll get dropped off Netflix at some point, and they'll just be one of those also-ran TV shows. I don't think Marvel have done a great job of making the Daredevil book hugely popular whilst the TV show was popular. I think there's kind of been like a disconnect between the two.
I agree with you. 100%.
So they're a little bit late to the game, but it's good to see that they're trying it at least.
Yeah. Right. Good points, man. Good points. Absolutely good points. Yeah, for me, I absolutely love this issue. It answered the question of whether he was dead or alive, because from the last month I had read of him, we weren't really sure. There was a little weird art going on. Now, I mean, he's alive, like you pointed out, he's alive, but he's in a coma. The last one I had actually read was Daredevil number 610. And the only thing, like you guys are kind of pointing out, is that this particular issue is falling into the trope that some comics fall into, and that they fill in the panels with a whole bunch of exposition, right?
Yeah, that's a shame.
But you know what? I didn't mind it here because the art for me, I know you guys didn't really like it, but for the art for me, when the art is really good and it's got that trippy landscape thing going on and the exposition is good, it's good. I didn't mind it and I actually liked it, right?
I like the art. Don't get me wrong. I think Lee Weeks is a great artist, and I think if this Danilo, whatever, Beirut, if he's kind of going with that style, which is a classic style for that character, I think that's all the better for him. But yeah, I agree with you on that. I thought the art was a lot better than the writing.
And I'm all for any throwback artists you want to give me. So if you can make it feel like an old book, I'm happy.
Yeah. But I do think that you had some good points when you mentioned the Netflix series, like not necessarily the first and second season, but the third season. I guess that's the third season. The third season and like the first 2 or 3 issues of it, when it goes into a whole bunch of exposition of why is he doing it, should he be doing it, and all this other stuff. I feel like it definitely was consistent with the show. So you had some really good points on that one. For me, as a collector, I loved it as well. No, it made me take some time to take a pause to do some research, especially because the Netflix show being canceled about a couple months ago. I went to look at what's happening with the secondhand book sales on some of the characters that were in there, for instance, like Bullseye and Elektra. And what I noticed was that for like the first appearance of Daredevil, the price is holding rising for the higher and lower grades. But for the side characters like Bullseye and Elektra, the higher grades are doing really well, but the lower grades are taking a shit dive. Excuse my language. So if you are holding a 7.0 and lower right now, the prices of your book is going down. And that's what I've noticed that's been happening since the show has been canceled. As far as covers, they had 3 okay covers. I think only one of them was really a variant cover, and that was the Quaffam character cover. And all of them were okay, nothing to rush to the store about. But otherwise, I love the story. I love the art on this. And I would definitely pick this up.
There you go. Right. So that's what's that? Is that a Flame from Lucas, and Mr. Fantastic from me. Professor, what was yours?
I'm gonna give it an Invisible Woman simply because I did like Charles Soule's run, and then this one is, ask me after the whole thing is done. Maybe I'll have a different opinion.
All right. Okay. Cool.
But Invisible Woman for me.
Okay, cool.
All right, so on to the our second review, and this might spark a debate because I have some questions about this issue. But Lucas wanted to review Conan the Barbarian #1, and welcome back Conan to the pages of Marvel Comics.
Absolutely, no, I've been a fan of anything Conan that pops up ever since the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Wilt Chamberlain and. The whole deal. So for me, this was an absolutely flame on. The chapter opens with pure classic Conan going at it, hacking and crushing his enemies in the fighting pits of Zamora, and celebrating his victory with some beautiful women, but one particularly blonde one catches his eye. So he goes back to the tent with this particular lady, and it turns out that she's a witch that's trying to kill him. So he dispenses with her, and then later on, that whole thing comes up again. But the thing that Marvel is trying to get across to you, why you should pick up this title, is that this whole run is going to show you how Conan dies. They're going into his origin story before his birth, how he became king and how he lost title, but this is the first time that they're actually going to show how he died and why he died. As far as the stats on this thing, I like you guys know, I love to do research on anything I'm reading. And even though Marvel and Dark Horse are claiming the throne to this thing, turns out his first book appearance was on Strange Tales of Mystery and Terror. Back in 1932, his first comic book appearance, and these are out there, was a Mexican comic called La Reina de la Costa Negra, which is the Queen of the Black Coast. So if you ever come across that on secondhand sales on eBay or Comic Link, go ahead and pick that up. Now there's of course, the first Marvel appearance, which was Conan #1, 1970. That's going for pretty good money, for about $3,400 to $5,600, depending on the grade. What I didn't like about it was the 16 doggone covers. Some were okay. The ones that were like really high grades, like the Bill Sienkiewicz, which is like a 1 to 200, I believe. It was okay. It wasn't worth $200. But if you find it and it's really low price, go ahead and pick it up. But none of the 16 covers that they put out made it worth me paying out. I think if you put it all together, it would be like $1,000 to pick up all these freaking books. So I don't know if you guys got a chance to read Conan, but if you did, what did you guys think about it?
Johnny, you go ahead first, and I'll follow.
Conan, let's see. Right, okay, so, well, Conan for Dark Horse, I always thought was a bit of an average book, to be fair. I'm a Conan fan from the books, the actual novels, which I read when I was a kid. Comic book wise, I can take them or leave them. I've got to be honest. I did like the fact that as the page opened up, as the books opened up, they had the sort of like the background of the old Marvel art by John Buscema in there. So we'll go through some stats. This book's written by Jason Aaron, he of Thor fame. Art is by Mahmoud Azra. Colours are by Matthew Wilson. This one I knew. And lettering is Travis Lennon. I think Jason Aaron's probably Marvel's version of Jeff Johns, possibly, with his work on previous books. We all know he loves his...
That's high praise.
Well, he loves his Thor, doesn't he? So, he's kind of up there when it comes to that sort of stuff. And he's not just Thor, but he's done loads of other stuff before. So I think there's some really good... I think he's a really good writer. I don't understand why... I don't want to say he's wasting his time, but I don't understand why you've got such a great writer doing stuff that we've seen a gazillion million times before.
Right.
It's like, it's Conan, so there's going to be witches, there's going to be smiting, there's going to be wenches, there's going to be killing, and by Crom, there's going to be some swords. And if that's your thing, great. Well done. For me, it's not really my thing. There's a reason why the Dark Horse version was mini-series based, because after the first arc, it kind of gets a bit samey, so you need to take a bit of a break. For me, that's kind of how I think. I also don't understand why we're getting two Conan books. This is one of them. I think Savage Sword's coming back as well. And Bud, didn't you say something about him joining the Avengers soon? So it's like, what?
He will be appearing. He'll be appearing in the Avengers. I certainly hope he doesn't join them.
For the last couple weeks, there's been, if you look at some of the covers that have been coming out, he's been on some of those covers. So I had no idea what they're doing.
Well,
it could be like a Venom cover,
Well, I'm going to talk about some alternative comic book for here. For Dynamite Comics, their Red Sonja book, which is very much like Conan in essence. Their current run started with Sonja getting thrown into the real world, he says, like a modern day world, and having to deal with all that. So, and that worked really well, and that was written by Amy Chu, who's a fantastic writer. So if they're going to go down that route, then fine. It could explain his death, because he dies because he's not there anymore, because he's been transported into Avengers world. Who knows? Guess we'll find out. It's pretty decent. Strong lines, good framework on all the characters. It helped give the art a book kind of like a chaotic feel, which you'd expect for something that's barbarian based. I will say that if you thought Daredevil was preachy, bloody hell, that witch, she doesn't have gone on a bit, doesn't she? There's like page after page after page after page. It's like, all right, okay, I get it. You like to talk about what your evil plan is, but you don't have to tell us all in one bloody go, surely. The colours were great. I love that painted look that comic books sometimes have, and it really works well for that sort of like down and dirty vibe that they're going for Conan. So overall, by Crom, it's another Mr. Fantastic from me.
Nice.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here, and I'm gonna shamefully admit that I was never really a big Conan fan.
Like Get Out.
I liked
Well, did you ever watch the movie, the 1984 movie?
the first one I loved. The second one I hated.
Did you watch Red Sonja?
I did not see Red Sonja.
Because Arnie's in that in a kind of Conan-like character, but it's not mentioned as being Conan.
But it might as well have been, right?
Kinda.
So, so this is kind of, I want to say it's one of the very few exposures to the character that I've ever really had. And I really did enjoy this issue because it's not something that Marvel would typically puts out. And this was when I said I had questions. First of all, I would like to, like a little bit of trivia there, maybe Lucas doesn't even know, is that the first time male nipples were ever shown in a comic was in Conan.
Really?
So,
Huh.
yeah, that's one of my favorite bits of trivia is that they never drew nipples on men until Conan appeared in Marvel Comics.
Sorry, did you say that was your breast bit of trivia there?
My breast bit of trivia. Yes.
Do you know which issue that was? Was that the?
Where was it? Let's see. It was in. Hold on. I'm going to try to find it for you.
Whilst you're doing that, can I just ask a question on the back of that? When his nipple was shown in the comic book, did Twitter go up banging on about it being over-sexualized and how dare a man show a nipple?
There was no such thing as Twitter.
Did anybody complain about it being over-sexualized, or did they just accept the fact that, hey, there's a muscular bloke, so he's a barbarian, he's not going to have he's not going to wear a shirt and tie? Because I am up to my back teeth of people bitching about over-sexualization. It is doing my head in.
So I could tell you the writer and the artist, but it's not really. I can't really see the issue number, but it was Roy Thomas.
John Buscema.
Barry Windsor Smith was the first artist that drew nipples on a character at Marvel. So there's a little Conan history here. And I'm gonna say I really did like the issue. I like Mahmoud Asr's art. I've seen him before. I can't really say where. Was he in Superman or something?
Conan.
Something Marvel-y. No, the artist.
Let me check for you whilst you're doing your bit.
I know we should do some research here, but
Okay.
my questions that I had about this issue is because since this really isn't something that Marvel normally does, because Marvel has really kind of moved away from the scantily clad females and maybe gratuitous gore, but Conan's famous for that. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any kind of blowback from the quote unquote fan base for showing midriffs and middle cleavage and.
So it goes with the territory, for Christ's sake, surely a
right?
god.
So we would think that, but I'm wondering if perhaps there might be a little complaint.
Oh no,
that
Conan
might be able to. Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian didn't say please and thank you. That's because he's a barbarian. That's good.
Yes.
Just deal with it.
So that was one of my questions, and the other question is, so this is the second property that Marvel has kind of snuck out from Dark Horse, and I was wondering what that kind of does to an indie like Dark Horse. I think
Dark Horse are diversified enough to carry that.
Well, who else?
Fair enough. The Star Wars one's a bit of a loss, but
right.
But Star Wars is also being farmed out to IDW for the kid-friendly stuff. So it's not like the House of Mouse is turning around and saying it can only be us. Conan, I stand by what I said before. With Dark Horse, he was a fair to medium type of character. His books weren't fantastic. I don't know. Dark Horse could maybe think, you know what, it's about time. We've done as much as we can with the character. Let somebody else have a crack. Which is fair enough, isn't it, really? I think Dark Horse will be fine.
Yeah. I'm like, who owns the actual Conan properties? Is it Marvel or Dark Horse, or is there another company that sublets it out to those two companies?
Well, I believe, and I'll check. But
it's owned by the family, I believe.
Yeah, the family of Robert E. Howard.
Conan Properties, yeah. Conan created by Robert E. Howard, but there's a company called Conan Properties International, which is right on the front page here. So there is a company that owns the rights to Conan, and that's why you see these the rights switch from the Dark Horse to the Marvel, because they go up for bid every year or a couple of years, and
Well,
And
so
admittedly, Marvel's got the history of the character from back in the 70s, and that
Yeah.
black and white stuff did it. We talk about DC and the Vertigo books, but if Marvel didn't put out those black and white books back in the 70s, there wouldn't be a mature audience for people to say, "Oh, look, you can get different things going on."
agree.
So you've got to tip your hat where credit's due and all that sort of stuff. Roy Thomas was instrumental in getting Conan the following that it was, and they've had some really good artists, Barry Windsor Smith, a Brit. And then, of course, you've got John Buscema, who absolutely made his name on Conan for the hippie, curvaceous women. So, it goes with the territory, I think.
Well, I think so. At that point, so being this is kind of like my first, not my first exposure to the character. I've been aware of him for decades, but
Sounds like you've
this
been
is the
aware of
first-
his nipples.
very aware of his nipples. But I think that this book is a flame on. I think if you're not looking for your typical Marvel fare, and this book's not even Thor. This book is Conan. So, yeah, okay. Well, I'm flaming it on. I enjoyed it. Go check it out. It's a good first issue, especially if you don't really know anything about the character, because they do kind of give him some background.
Good shout, well done.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So are we done with Conan? Because we can jump over to the next book.
At Crom, we are.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump over to Iron Man, Tony Stark, number 7. And Johnny, you're gonna start this one.
All right, okay, so I should really look at the characters before I even pick a book. So it's written by Dan Slott with Jeremy Whitley. Art is by Valero Skitty, I'm going with. Edgar Delgado, I got that one, is on colours, and Joe Caramagna is on letters. This is one of those crazy books that there's just so much going on that you blink, you might miss something. For a smart guy, Tony makes some absolutely stupid bonehead decisions. It baffles me how he's managed to put one foot in front of the other sometimes. I also find it odd. Actually, I don't find it odd. I find it refreshing that Dan Slott and Jeremy Whitley understand that without anybody to bounce off, Tony Stark is just a non-entity. He needs somebody to be sharp and acidic with, and kind of be sarky with, and kind of try and push the buttons. Without that, he doesn't have anything. He's not like, he doesn't have that like inner monologue that Spider-Man or Peter Parker has to keep the reader interested. So he definitely needs that supporting cast. I still love Joe Castor. What can I say? My heart belongs to Joe Castor. And of course, this time we also get a Machine Man, no relation, cameo, which is always good and fun because I love Steve Ditko Machine Man. There you go. I'll put that out there. The writing has a lot of energy to it, which is good on one hand. Yet on the other, I sometimes feel it keeps so many plates spinning that it lets the reader, and by default, Tony, miss the obvious elements. The art is just a little too chaotic for my tastes. A couple of panels and pages were a tad confusing, and then you throw on top of the Dayglow colours, and you have a book that kind of hurts your eyes to look at it to some extent. I know we don't talk a lot about letters, but Joe Caramagna is the guy that did the letters on this, and where's that? The Wolverine book, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So you can actually see the difference that letter can make to a comic book, because the two books are dramatically different from each other. I'm gonna, on this one, I love the idea of what's going on with this book. I just wish it made a little bit more sense. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a little bit throw the paint at the wall and hope it covers it a little bit. So for me, it's a Mr. Fantastic. There you go. Thank you very much. That's it.
All right. Lucas, you wanna take a stab?
Yeah. Well, this for me was a flame on. To give everybody a little context as to what's going on. Tony, he launched his VR immersive technology, and he's calling it Escape, right? Where you put on your goggles, your VR goggles, and everything, and then you go into this immersive world, which is basically what's been holding back real world VR right now. And you interact with other players and yada yada yada. But in Tony's Escape VR, some of the hostile players they were being kicked out because they were doing stupid stuff. But then all of a sudden, those same hostile players, they're being pulled back in, and he couldn't control it. Then he finds out that the controller, who is a longtime Tony Stark Iron Man freaking villain, has been doing all this and opening a back door to all the banned players. So the interesting thing that the controller is doing is he's been emailing or mailing these real lasers or real guns to people's houses, right? And inside the game, he's been having people, you walk outside your house, you go out and you just shoot the guns, but the people don't realize they're outside and they don't realize they're actually shooting real people. And that hit home for me because, I have a whole bunch of this VR technology around my house. And every once in a while I get scared because, one wrong step and you can run to your wall or you can run into a TV. But here they've got people actually hurting other people. You can go online and see all these people that are using their VR goggles or whatever, and then they freaking smash into a wall and they get in a freaking coma. So that's why I freaking love this, because it's kind of bringing us up to date of the real world technology. You mentioned Jocasta, actually beautiful freaking little robot. I liked seeing her in here. Her first appearance was in Avengers number 162. Her book is doing okay. It's like $10 to $15 book. And then you mentioned Machine Man. His first appearance was in 2001, A Space Odyssey number 8. His book is actually doing real good. At 9.8 will get you $350 to $400. So if you're going through the rings and going through on your knees, going through the boxes, look out for those two.
I actually have in my collection, picked up off eBay, Machine Man 2020. It's got beautiful, gorgeous Barry Windsor Smith art in this, and it's like a 4-issue limited. And honestly, it is an absolute. If you're a fan of Machine Man, which I don't think there's that many people out there that love Machine Man, but if they do, go and pick up this 4-issue run. It's a 4-issue miniseries, and honestly, it is fantastic. Iron Man's in there as well, kinda. And, of course, Jocasta's there as well.
Well, here's what I would like to see from Marvel going forward. I know they're not willing to do it, but I would like to see Jocasta and Machine Man and Vision and Vision's family in, like, one big movie or series or something. Like, I would like to see that going forward.
50 Shades of Robot.
Yeah, that's what I
want. Your hardware has gone all floppy.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
I want to see them going against Ultron, doing their thing. I want to see that fully developed. Because the Age of Ultron movie, it gave me a bit of a headache watching it, and I didn't really like it. But I thought the concept was really great. But I just want to see them push it further at some point in the future. What I didn't mention was there are 2 covers from this. I forget who did the second cover, but the first cover is cover A, is by Alexander Lozano, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's got this Iron Man, it's got this whole black swirl going around him. You can tell it's done by a professional artist, not a comic book artist, but an artist. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot out there. There's going to be 17,000 out there, but that's the type of cover that I wouldn't mind getting in case and putting up on my wall. That's all I got.
I'll jump in. I love this book. I've loved this whole run. I think Dan Slott is kind of really kind of peeling back the onion a little bit on what it is to be artificial intelligence in Marvel. He's really kind of, I don't know, embraced it, or he's kind of really trying to take a look at it. First of all, before I get into that, I want to say the Escape name is, this is just going to show you that Marvel has the best names for products that may be real. And I think any kind of virtual reality platform that called itself Escape would be making billions of dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
that one.
And going into the story, this has kind of been a slow burn up until, I mean, we're 7 issues in, and we're just kind of getting to the Controller's master plan. He has been kind of around since issue 1, but going in here and finding, you know, all of the I guess you want to say it, trolls that got banned from the game, the Controller let back in to just kind of create mayhem. I thought it was kind of it's kind of funny if you're a gamer and you know all those griefers that run around and try to just make everybody else's experience kind of suck.
Oh, you can be on Twitter.
Right. So I really kind of I kind of think that this is kind of a topical, like, real world story almost. This is the first time I think I've ever seen Joe Costa with clothes on. So
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. That's where I kind of really feel like Dan Slott's really kind of peeling back on, like, what AI means, and nothing says that more than towards the end of the issue, where Tony says, "Friday, I need you to download back into my armor," and it really is kind of like, no, you know.
Yeah, it's really quite poignant. It's kind of the disregard. It's almost a disregard for it. They're talking about how AI has its own, not its own, but it has its own rights. And
Yes.
Tony's all for, you have. Oh, by the way, I don't care about your rights because I need this. So it's always like his needs going to come ahead of Friday's. So you can certainly metaphoricalize that into any sort of perception of one group of people disrespecting another group of people, whatever that difference may be. Did I say that correctly? I think I probably got away with that.
Well, it comes at the problem from a couple of different levels, right? Because Tony created Friday, right? So, but at what point does your creation have a life of its own, right? So that's almost like saying to your child, you know, you'll always belong to me.
Especially if they wreck the car. That's all I'm saying. That's the line. Wreck the car.
And you know, I can see this. You know, I can kind of see this coming. What kind of rights does AI have? And I think that's probably going to be a storyline coming down the road. You know,
I agree.
With the inclusion of Jocasta and Machine Man and Friday, and I'm surprised Vision's not in here somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I like I said, I love this storyline. I think Dan Slott's kind of really kind of made the character his own after Bendis' long run. So I'm really interested in seeing how his next the next storyline that starts next month, which is the Digital Demon in a Bottle.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one.
So.
I know I said this about the Daredevil book, and I've said this in the past that I've complained that the Marvel books, everybody's got a jokey character in there that's supposed to mimic kind of the way the movie franchises are ran, that everyone has to be funny. I suppose, other than Daredevil, the Tony Stark in this book is probably the most on-point variant from the Marvel Cinematic Universe for Tony Stark characters, I would say.
I think in the comic they allow him to be more douchey than they allow him in the movies. And he is definitely, and he's always been kind of a jerk, even before. I'm talking like 70s, 80s. He's kind of always been a dick.
Yeah. So the thing that kind of bugs me a little bit is his whole his being an alcoholic. That didn't really transfer over to the MCU universe.
That's true.
But if they're going to pick up with it in the comics in the next issue, then I'm going to be okay with that. The closest they got was to in the MCU universe was when he had PTSD, and but that's not something you can really control. That's just something that happened to you, and you're just dealing with it.
So with the whole digital in a bottle type demon and whatever it's called, the idea is that in my head, when it comes to addictions, it doesn't matter if it's alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever, comic books, whatever it is. It's the fact that there's that hole missing somewhere, that you're using a third party product or service or element to fill that hole. So for Tony, he could be using AI as the new alcohol, because he's using AI to create that family feeling that he hasn't had.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what tends to happen if you don't... I've worked in mental health in the past, so what tends to happen is that if you've got somebody who's like an alcoholic, they can go into 28-day care or whatever, and that kicks the habit of them having to take alcohol. But if you don't resolve the issue of why they needed alcohol in the first place, they'll relapse, but it won't be with alcohol, it'll be with something else.
Right.
Yeah? So in Tony's case, if they're moving away from the alcoholic element, he could still have that core need to be addicted to something, and AI could be that replacement, which would make the story a lot more interesting and make him a lot more, I guess, a lot more on point, on topic with today's world. I don't know, but hey, there you go. That's my 2 cents.
Well,
go ahead, sir.
I'm just gonna say I think that this issue is a flame on, and I highly recommend this whole series. So go back and read it.
Right. So, but you made some really good points. So when the Devil in a Bottle comes out, I would really like to reserve for us to discuss it when it does comes out, seeing as how you have so much insight.
Love to.
Yeah, cool. There you go. Tony Stark's getting preferential treatment.
There we go. Let's move to the top of the reading pile. All right, so let's jump into another number one this week. We've got the comic book adaptation of a podcast, Wolverine: The Long Night, number one, written by Benjamin Percy with art by Marcio Takara, colors by Matt Miller, and Joe Caramagna, previously was it Iron Man that you just did? Is that what we were just talking about?
Yeah.
For letterers. So I'm going to shout out that you can listen to this podcast on WolverinePodcast.com. But I have not personally listened to it, and I don't know if you guys have. So this to me was not a recap for me, like having listened to the podcast already. But this very much reads like a first issue of almost like a mystery novel. Like we don't know what's happening to, this fishing boat that turned up a bunch of people were dead on, ripped to pieces and clawed and.
Wasn't it the Tyrannosaurus Rex that did that?
They found a Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah,
in Alaska.
I saw this movie. Yeah, I saw this movie.
Yeah. So, the whole kind of mystery. They introduce a couple of characters, a couple of special agents. They don't really say what kind of they're from the FBI or SHIELD or whatever. Special agents.
Mulder and Scully.
That's exactly how I thought of it too. They're kind of tracking down this mystery, and they're trying to reveal who it was that killed all the people on the boat. And throughout this issue, they're pretty much basically, they're going to the morgue and checking out the victims. They're talking to witnesses or stories, and you find out that there's a story about a man that was on that boat that had claws for his hands. So it's basically a lot of rumors, right? And they kind of reveal him towards the end of the issue. He doesn't talk the whole time because it's just other people telling stories. But I think it was interesting. It's a very, very interesting take on an old character, and I don't know if maybe this is the right time for it because we haven't seen the real Wolverine technically in a book for 3 years. even though he's kind of been, you know, I know we're gonna go there. But I enjoyed this. It makes me interested to read the next one. It actually made me want to go check out the podcast, which I believe that's the whole idea of adapting this into a comic.
Yeah.
So you go check out the podcast.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I thought it was pretty good. What did you think, Lucas?
I thought as well that was a flame on for me. I actually listened to the podcast while I was reading the book. And it matches up pretty well. There are more elements in the podcast. So I definitely recommend doing both. I think you said it was at WolverinePodcast.com. I actually listened to it on YouTube.com. It was there. Absolutely amazing. There's nothing I can add to what you described it really well. I don't want to give away anything else. I don't want to spoil anything because it was really good. You just got to experience it for yourself. The only thing I can add is about the two covers that they came out for it. They're okay. It was a little weird. One cover is by Raphael Albuquerque, who is really good. He's one of my favorites. And then the second cover, which is by Gabriel Walta. I actually prefer the Raphael Albuquerque, and that one is for regular price at $5. But the Gabriel Walta, which is really weird, is 1 to 25, so that's about a $25 to $30 book. But like I said, once again, this whole thing was a flame on. I definitely recommend picking up the book, and if you can't pick up the book, definitely freaking listen to the podcast.
So I have a question for you, Lucas. Since you listen to the podcast and I didn't, are the podcasts done in episodes?
Yes.
And is this would be this count as like episode 1?
Yeah.
And does it end at the same spot?
Episode 1 alpha.
Okay. And so it ended at the same spot then. So if you each issue is going to be an episode.
Right around the same episode. So I don't know if some of the other elements that were missing from the book are going to be added in later.
Okay.
I could definitely see that. But
so you're saying they're important elements, not like just they didn't find a way to translate it to the page.
Yes.
It down.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Johnny, what did you think?
Right, so it's written by Ben Percy, who has spent some time on Green Arrow as part of the Rebirth rebrand, and I quite liked his stuff then. Why have such a quality writer on a book that is essentially an adaptation of a podcast? See, adaptations do not float my boat in any shape, way, or form. All right, so when you see the Distinguished Competition put out their all-new animated feature, Gotham by Gaslight, you're like, it's not all new because I've got the book already. You know what I'm saying? Does the Dark Knight Returns cartoon give me anything that I won't get from reading the book? No. Does the Watchmen movie give me anything that I don't get from the book? No. So, as a means to promote the Wolverine character, surely the best service to Wolverine would be to get his shit sorted out so that he'd be back on the regular books moving forward, and not this sort of it could have happened and this adaptation type thing. I'm kind of just lost on it. I've got to be honest. When I was reading the book, the female special agent is definitely Scully. She walks into the morgue and starts dropping like medical terms like nobody's business. It's this, it's that, it's the other. And you're like, there's no sort of like preset to sort of like say to the reader, she knows this. It's just convenient that it just happens. It might be different in the podcast. It might give you some sort of idea of who these characters are. But to me, they're just two no names, rock up. One thinks they know more than the other because they've got medical history. I don't know. The art by Marcio Takara, who's done some work on Captain Marvel in the past, it just looks clumsy sometimes. It kind of it fits the story and the whole idea of Wolverine being that kind of like off the grid type of character, and so it's not polished and he's rough around the edges. But with so much other X material coming out, especially with the new age of X-Man coming just round the corner, do you really want to be dropping $5? Did you say
Yeah,
$5?
$5. Yeah.
$5 on this book, really? When you can get the podcast for free?
That's
okay.
You're a
hardcore fan if you can do that, my friend. Hardcore fan. For me, it's a clobber.
Yeah, I agree with you on the pricing, but not just for the $5 one, but for the $25 one as well.
Yeah, you see, absolutely right.
Once again, if I am like I said before, I'm an Albuquerque hardcore fan.
I like Albuquerque.
Yeah, I love them, but $5 for so actually that's something I wanted to get into, right? I love the idea of doing a podcast. So what I would really love them to do is, if they're going to bump these books up to $5, $7, there's been some that out this year that were like $10. What they need to do is, inside the book, put a code that directs you to the podcast. That way I can look and listen to the podcast at the same time, instead of doing the podcast first for free and then putting out the cover book. That's what I would rather have had them do. Or you can do the book first and do the podcast later. But I think they got a little backwards with the way they did, especially for pricing that they're expecting to pay for it right now. So I agree with you on that, man.
There you go. Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm going to give it a flame on because I liked it.
You can't really argue with that, can you? I'm ordering whiskey because I like whiskey. God damn it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm a flame on for this as well. It's just the business end of it was a little hinky. I only have one last thing to add on this, of how the story was told. It kind of reminded me, like, I don't know if you guys were able to read the first 2 issues of the current Immortal Hulk, of how they went into more of how it impacted the people around it than actually showing the actual Hulk.
Yeah.
That's what reminded me of how they were showing this. They were talking about what was happening around and how it impacted the people in that town, rather than showing actual Wolverine.
That's all well and good, and I totally get that. But when I read this book, I had to double check, because I'm sure I've read this story in Wolverine Bloodlust by Alan Davis, going back a few years. Go check it out. Oh, it's Alaska. There's some monsters rocking around killing people. It affects the people around him. And the art's a lot prettier as well, so what can I say? It's Alan Davis. He's a dude to God, so I totally get where you're coming from, but I still kind of think, you know what? It's just not enough of a hook. It's just not enough. It's just not different enough. And as I say, I can go and listen to the pod while I'm in the bath later, and I won't have to spend any money on it whatsoever. So
okay,
that's a fair assessment. But that segue is going to bring us to our final book that we're reviewing today, and that is going to be The Immortal Hulk, number 11. And,
God.
Lucas, take it away.
Okay, so Immortal Hulk number 11, written by Al Ewing and art by Joe Benet. To give you context, at the end of Immortal Hulk number 10, Carl the Crusher Creel, who is actually like the new Red Hulkish going on, he opened the Green Door, turning Los Diablos, which is where the Hulk was made, into a red tinted hellscape filled with destroyed buildings, rubble everywhere, mysterious green lights showing up from a hill. And in this issue, Immortal Hulk number 11, Hulk is on his journey and he's heading towards Green Light, but he's got this other girl that's with him, Jackie McGee. She showed up in the Immortal Hulk number 11 of 2018, and her whole deal is she's been showing up as like a journalist, like an investigative journalist, but what she actually really wants to find out is how can she become the Hulk. And when she actually finds the Hulk, she actually asks him, how can I become you? So while they're walking, he says, you want to know why, how to become the Hulk, why. And she actually goes into this whole deal and I know people don't like this whole social justice warrior thing going on. They don't like the whole social political thing in their books. I get that. But what she goes into is she gives them her point of view of how the Avengers have historically let the Hulk and Bruce Banner off the hook for violence. And anytime he gets angry, like he's destroyed cars, he's destroyed buildings, he's destroyed all types of things, but he essentially gets off the hook. And he goes, well, I was shot into space, right? And she goes, yeah, you were shot into space, but you weren't actually shot and killed, which is an allusion to how things for some African American females here in the United States have, for instance, maybe like a few miles from me, a African American lady, she had a bad day and she got angry and she got shot. And I think that's and that's what this is an allusion to. And I think it was not more than maybe a few meters away from the White House or whether Capitol Hill or something like that. And she was shot. So that's why that struck with me, is that over the last couple of years, there's been this whole, the whole integration of social political agenda exposition in the comics. I get it, but I feel that it was actually smooth, a lot smoother than from the way the other comics have been trying to do it. And it has the purpose of pushing story forward, hopefully, because if she's trying to become like the Hulk, and she's giving her reason of why she wants to become the Hulk, maybe that's the whole plan, is that she'll get her shot, and this is the reason why, and there's a whole social political agenda behind it. But the most interesting thing to look out for in Immortal Hulk number 11 is the appearance of a very dead Thunderbolt Ross, who was also known as the original Red Hulk. His first appearance as the Red Hulk was in Hulk number 1, 2008. The reason why I thought this was interesting, because it has implications for what's going on in the Captain America book and the Avengers book right now. So if you haven't been checking that out, go check those out. I don't know how you guys feel. How do you guys feel about it, if you guys got a chance to read it?
I love this book. I think it's been one of the best books Marvel's been putting out for the last several months. I am in love with Joe Bennett's art. I think he makes the Hulk look different, makes him look fresh. Ali Ewing is doing weird things. The last couple of issues, they've dissected him, cut him into pieces, put him back together, and now they've depowered him, so he's kind of walking around all scrawny with like skin flaps hanging down, and he looks different, and that's what I like about this book, is they're treating the Hulk like no one's ever treated him before. They're really kind of getting in there and dissecting how he deals with his anger, and not just to mention that Thunderbolt Ross shows up in this book, but also a very dead Rick Jones shows up in this book, and that was gonna be my shutout, because I bitch all the time about there not being any continuity between books, and things that are going on in another series are not reflected in this book.
Absolutely.
But having
good point.
So having something being mentioned, and Hulk didn't even know Ross was dead. So having him find out in the pages of his own book really kind of if you're not reading Captain America, that might be like a fan of the Hulk wanting to find out how Ross died. Maybe do a little research and find out where he died.
Right.
So that to me is interesting. I love the panel where he just shreds the Red Hulk in half and rips him apart. It's almost like he was just ripping apart like a sheet of paint. It was just skin. There's no bones or anything.
Right.
And there was one panel that I thought was just shocking, was when he's talking to Rick Jones and he kind of sticks his finger in Rick Jones' eye socket.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really great visual, and it just kind of that's really kind of how I feel about this book. It's like a poke in the eye. So I enjoy the shit out of it, and I can't flame this book on enough every single issue that we get. So Johnny, prove me wrong.
It's me, isn't it? I'm a neggy Nigel. Can't believe it. So, as I understand it, Hulk gets mad, Hulk smashes things, and that's pretty much how it goes. no matter how good the window dressing is, that's all you're going to get. And things kind of do reset, and he does get mad, and he does go in for his bit of a fight session going on there. The problem with this book for me is that I read Daredevil #1 first, or Man Without Fear, or whatever it's called, first. So the whole fighting against your past element, I'd already read this week. So it kind of didn't have the same resonance as if it had been scheduled differently. Does that make sense?
That's fair.
Yeah, because it annoys me when comic book companies, and everybody does it, it's like, oh, but we've talked about this in the past. How many times has the Wrecking Crew turned up? You know, we talk about it. It's that same mentality
that's
again.
My thing.
Yeah, it's the same mentality. Let's have Daredevil go into his past and talk about all the shit that he's done. And then, I tell you what, for change of pace, let's do exactly the same thing in Hulk. You know, it's like, I love the art. The art was decent. Has a very strong linear approach. So, like, really strong, fine lines in there that kind of really accentuate the differences in the Hulk that you'd expect him to be. Obviously, he's got his Hulk head, but his body, as you say, is like withered away like nobody's business. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't. I smirked at the whole Jack McGee, daughter McGee, don't make me angry, and all that sort of stuff, which is kind of how it goes with this. I don't know. I'm just maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just not feeling it. The Hulk to me is pretty much a one-punch character. Get mad, smash stuff. And no matter how many different ways you make him either smart or dumb or green or grey or in a suit, it's still the Hulk. Yeah.
So I'm gonna totally agree with you how I feel about the Hulk one-punch character. I totally get every single word you're saying, and I've hated the Hulk for years because I just didn't feel like I identified with him. This is the first series I think I've ever read that I've actually thought they've made him interesting. And I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that you're coming in mid-story, but if you go back and read the entire story, I think Al Ewing is doing something with the Hulk that they have not done yet. He's breaking new ground, I think.
I like the fact that there's a resonance for Lucas in this book a lot. When I hear Lucas talk about the impact in his neighborhood and stuff like that, I get why he likes the book. Bearing in mind, I'm a Brit. I live in the northeast of England. We don't have any of that here. So to me, it's just a comic book story. And I know that sounds like a bit of a derogatory statement to go for the people who were obviously suffering stuff that this book's linked to, and also the work that Al Ewing's putting into this. But the book has no relevance to me from that point of view. So I'm going to put an Invisible Woman tag on this. I'm going to take it or leave it. Sorry.
Well, but no, it doesn't. But I'll tell you what. So what I've noticed over the last couple or few months is that Marvel has been trying to put out more books that apply or can resonate with African American females. For instance, Shuri is a great book. Moon Girl. Yep. They've been putting out more Moon Girl books. They've been changing the style of Storm to make her more modern and everything. So for you to say that's not at all. I get it. You're across the pond, so it's not going to resonate for you. This, I do think they're trying to hit more with African American females, which is great.
Yeah, totally.
However, with all those other books, it's just a Marvel character who just happens to be black. This one, they actually hit on some social issues, and they actually did it a lot smoother and in a way that makes a lot more sense in every single other one. So I'm here clapping my hands for Marvel on this one, because even when they introduced this character, Jackie McGee, she was the investigative journalist. I was like, oh great, just another Marvel character. But when they putting this it was just 6 panels when they talked about it. And then they also talked about the impact of Hulk on her own family and how she felt it was hey, just another sorry to say this, there's another white guy who gets to do damage and then he gets away with it. That type of thing that they instituted and the way that it was written was really good. So, good on Al Ewing to go ahead and put that in there, and Joe Bennett. I mean, just so smooth. The only thing other than that I had to add to talk about this book is, there was 2 covers for this. One by the cover A is regular by Alex Ross cover, and the other one's by Phil Noto. I haven't had a chance to go pick up the store, but I'm definitely going to pick up that Alex Ross. It was absolutely really good. Like you were talking earlier, Johnny, about how the scrawny look of the Hulk. I mean, that's definitely, and the flaps coming off of Alex Ross absolutely captures that to a T. And the scrawny fingers and the fingernails, it's a really good one. That one's one that I would definitely consider collecting and hanging up somewhere. That's all.
All right. So, I mean, it looks like we're going to agree to disagree, Johnny, about the Hulk because we got 2 people
It's
who
fine.
really liked it.
Fine.
No,
Hey,
Hey,
I'm
we're
all
not supposed to
for.
agree on everything.
Hey, I'm all for agreeing to disagree. That's what makes comic books so much fun.
For sure. So that's going to do it for this episode. I just want to shout out a GoFundMe page. I don't know if you've followed ComicCrusaders.com at all, but in the last week, our fearless leader, Al Mega, Alex Perez, they experienced a fire in their home, and they've been displaced and are currently looking for new accommodations. So a friend of their family has put up a GoFundMe, and I just wanted to just shout that out. If you want to look up the Perez family on GoFundMe and make a donation, everything that you have could be appreciated. I know that we put out a lot of podcasts, but there's not a lot of income generated or any income generated for anybody. I mean, this really is a labor of love from all of us. And Al is the driving force and the motivator and the cheerleader for all of us. And I encourage you all, if you enjoy our podcasts, any of them, not just No Prize, but the DC podcast, our video game podcast, Flipside Focus, any of those podcasts. If you enjoy them, please consider donating and helping Al and his family get into someplace. We are in the Northeast. It does get cold in January, so anything that you can donate. And I don't know if you guys want to add anything, but I just wanted to shout that out.
There you go.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of No Prize Podcast, Season 3, Episode 1 in the can, and we will see you in a couple of weeks for Episode 2.
Bye.